warrior. I was just walking home from an important meeting here in New York City. It's cold and windy, and I was doing a lot of thinking. But it was actually a really pleasant mind cleaning out kind of brisk air. I mean, it was really windy and cold, and I walked along Fifth Avenue on the side of Central Park, so I can't complain. It wasn't too bad. I saw nature, I got a chance to think, and certainly New York City at Christmas time is like no other place around. But why I'm telling you all this is because I was going to sit down and write a paper on something. And then I decided, you know what, I'll write that paper. But in the meantime, I am going to share some thoughts with you. And I was thinking about child trafficking in the suburbs and small towns. That is the hidden surge happening right now because we traditionally think that the trafficking is happening in my hometown of New York City, places, like LA, Chicago, Houston. And yes, it is happening there. We know this. But what's happening now is happening all over the United States. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. We always traditionally said that trafficking targets our most vulnerable communities. Here in New York State, it's just the fact that the sex trafficking we know about targets girls and women of color. They make up the percentage of what is sex trafficked, okay? And that goes for boys and men as well, if we looked at the overall who is getting trafficked. Now, because of the internet, we can no longer say that. It is exploding with the reaches it has, the internet, and who is getting trafficked, and it has seeped into our suburbs. And I don't hear anybody talking about this. So I wanted to put down a couple of thoughts. But most American families, remember at the Warriors, we America first. Most American families don't want to think about trafficking. I don't blame them. It's dark, it's ugly, and they truly believe it could never touch their lives. But we are focusing on this truth that too many really don't want to talk about and have been ignoring. And it is a crisis, and it really is surging in suburbs and rural areas. So no longer does the zip code you live in provide a shield, talking about it. What do we say? Raising awareness, giving you a couple of facts, giving you a couple of take actions, just getting you, I guess, to really listen is what is so important. When I tell you this is an American crisis, this is an American crisis, the predation of our children. And again, like a broken record, because of the internet, it is reaching into every home. It's at your kitchen table. It's in your child's bedroom, in your family room. It's in your child's backpack. Remember, we don't want devices in the bedrooms at night. We want the devices common area of the home. Children need their sleep. We know there are addictions online. Kids will swipe all night. Get the devices out of the bedrooms. But what about all these kids? And I keep asking this question. There are a lot of kids that have nobody looking out for them, right? Nobody taking action to protect them. So we want to keep talking about that as well. We got to figure out how that one works, except talking directly to the child, to the teen, and making them understand that the traffickers out there, the predators, these criminals, it's their power over you. It's their making money off of you. If they get an image of you and they upload it to a porn site, share it in these horrific communities. But really, again, most people think of, for instance, let's use my home, my city, New York City. They think of the Port Authority bus terminal, Grand Central Terminal, rundown neighborhoods, and it's so crowded here. I mean, the crowds today out on the streets, unbelievable. We just had the lighting of the Christmas tree in Rockefeller Center last night. A lot of tourists, because I hear all the foreign languages on the streets, which is a good thing because we want the money to come into our city, our economy, the shopping. But those are anonymous crowds, right? So people will think, oh, those traffickers easily blend into the anonymous crowds. And they kind of think of trafficking as strangers lurking. They also think of movies because Hollywood does a very good job of misrepresenting, actually, trafficking. They've portrayed Pretty Woman, where the vulnerable young woman meets, her handsome prince. And at the end, he whisks her away and they live happily ever after. And I know that really 99.99% of the time is not what happens. People are thrown away just like a used, old tissue. They're not ending up with their prince. and they're not ending up, shopping on Rodeo Drive, Fifth Avenue, wearing designer outfits and living in mansions. Does not happen. But that's what people sometimes think about. And they don't understand their quiet suburb. Do you ever drive through? I mean, you may live in the suburbs, right? We go over to Jersey to go food shopping, and I have family members over there. And, at nighttime, very quiet on the streets. And you can't imagine that trafficking would happen there. So people just really assume, a word I don't like, shouldn't assume anything in this day and age, that they're safe, that their children are safe. But we have to be very clear about all of this. It does not always begin with a van or a stranger. It begins with, you got it, the devices, a phone. We're going to keep talking about it at the Warriors, until you understand what's going on here. A trafficker can reach a child, sitting in a farmhouse or a very rural area, cul-de-sac, expensive neighborhood, not expensive neighborhood, it doesn't matter. But gaming chats, social media messages, photo sharing, encrypted media messages and platforms. DMs is the thing they've been using. For instance, your child's on Snapchat, and Snap, the kids like it. I think they call it Snap now. Snap, because the photo disappears after, I don't know what it is, 10 seconds or something like that. I'm not on Snap, and I know enough about it. But anyway, that's what the kids like, Snap and YouTube and TikTok. That's the reality. But what happens is that predator will say, why don't you're cute, why don't you DM me? And the kids are doing it. So the DMs, the direct messages, is what these predators are using right now. But this is where the grooming starts, the process of gaining the trust of the child, of the teen, of anybody, before they go in for the kill, as we like to say. So geographically, nobody's even in the same room. You can be on different continents and you're being groomed. So rural kids are often the number one targets because predators really think they're easier to manipulate and they have more money. For instance, for sextortion, they're going after the teenage boys in middle to upper class neighborhoods because they figure they can pay them, kind of thing. And just a sidebar here, as we like to say, is you will never, and you should share this with your child. I tell you things so you can share them with kids, okay? You should never pay these predators because there will never be enough money. For instance, if they want $500 and a teen boy sends $500, they're going to keep at it and at it. It doesn't make it go away. You need to teach your kids. They have to come to you first or a trusted adult to talk about this. You have to recognize these early warning signs where the awareness we talk about at the Warriors. We preach this. We go across New York State, across the country to talk about just the signs, what to look for. Because every child who has harmed themselves, the parents will always say, I didn't notice anything. I didn't see anything. Now looking back, maybe. So we are about intervention and prevention at the Warriors. But if your child becomes, here are some of the warning signs. If your child becomes very secretive all of a sudden, and especially with their phone, they grab it, they hide it, they put it away in front of you. Suddenly a new friend or two you've never met before is in their lives all of a sudden. Absolutely a dramatic shift in behavior. You know your child, your grandchild better than anybody. You know if it's in your gut. Don't fight it. You're usually right about something. The ultimate, this one I kind of never understand, is if your children start and your teens showing up with new clothes or designer bags or just little trinkets, a piece of jewelry. If you didn't buy it for them and they don't have some kind of job to buy it for themselves, where are they getting these items? So be aware of what they have. And if you ask them and they can't explain where it came from, I think that's a big tip right there. But the conversations that stop when a parent walks, a young person, what they do is they isolate us in the bedrooms. They're in there for hours, and you think, you know what? Better than they're out on the street running around with their friends. They're safe under our roof. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I believe there's more danger in the homes these days because more kids are isolated, and kids are spending upwards of 9, some reports say 12 hours a day online. So when kids become also very defensive because they're asked a very simple question, these are not teen mood swings. They're signs of grooming. And we have seen cases break open in communities when one high school and fewer than 10,000 residents in a town, right? There's trafficking. And everybody says the same thing. This couldn't happen here. We never thought this would happen. How do the predators do this? Because they're very strategic, because they're always 10 steps ahead of law enforcement. And they move children quietly along routes through towns also, if they physically pick them up and get them. There are a lot of cases. You got to keep your eye peeled online of kids disappearing from rural areas and suburbs. Media doesn't talk about it too much. Take it from me. But what do they do? If this child meets somebody online, so many cases the child goes out to meet. When I say child, I mean like 18 and under, okay? The child goes out to meet that stranger in real life. We have basically 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 kids are approached sexually online. Of that, about 42% will go out in real time to meet somebody they met online. Now think about that. That's shocking. If we know it's 42%, could be 50, 60%. This is what we know about. What they do if they traffic them like that in person is they're not staying in the neighborhood. They're bringing them to other towns and cities and getting them out of there. Highways, are convenient to suburbs, right? They're somewhere along there, and that's what they're doing. So the problem is real and it's growing, and families really have to understand what they're actually up against. And if something feels off with your child, again, you can feel it. Pick up on the warning signs and approach your child, always very calmly. Ask open questions. Document, because you'll forget if something happens down the road when you had that conversation, when you saw something. Always have a paper trail. Always reach out to the school counselor, favorite teacher, making even the school aware something could be going on. And also lots of rural areas, not so much here in cities like New York. Rural areas tend to know their law enforcement, right? Their police captain, their sheriff. So always kind of loop them in a little bit. You're suspicious or you're feeling, your intuition, just to have this documentation. Because usually there are other parents feeling like this, and other kids are going through this, because we at the Warriors believe every child deserves protection no matter where they live. Trafficking is not just a city problem. It is an everywhere problem across the United States. Your vigilance, your voice. Remember, don't go against your gut. Learn the signs, because you can stop a trafficker long before they take a child, and you must stay alert. If you see something, don't be afraid to call your local law enforcement, 911. Again, that paper trail, that you're doing all this. Also local, there are 55, I believe, FBI local offices across the United States. Contact your local FBI office, and always stay informed. Keep the kids safe. And should a child disappear, you want some advice, you can also call, you can contact them online, cybertipline.org, and ask some questions. There's never enough vigilance, safety for our precious kids. But realize it's not any longer just the most vulnerable, poor, inner city kids. It is happening completely. In 2025, we're seeing the shift, we're seeing the demos across the entire United States. Are we going to stop all this? Let me be real with you. No, we're not. Okay? But what we can do is talk to our kids. What we can do is be aware of situations, be aware of what's going on in the country. What we can do is have a handy list of references, like I told you. Local law enforcement, 911, definitely. Have that paper trail. Local FBI office, have it all ready. Put it in your phone, put it on a piece of paper. I'm old school. Tuck it away somewhere you can find it, reachline.org. Always keep 988, the Suicide Lifeline and Prevention hotline, where you can just call them and ask questions or ask about local resources. It's not always necessarily, God forbid you need it in an emergency. Yes, it's there, but also it's a point of information. So join us at the Warriors. Be aware, be alert. Lots going on in 2025, the end of the year. And it's more than ever up to us. Community creates change, to be those warriors protecting the kids. Because right now, we can't depend on Washington. There's a lot going on with child safety legislation. We'll leave that for another video. Let's talk about the kids right now. Safety, safety, safety. So child trafficking does not always happen just in inner cities, happens and surging in rural areas and perhaps your town, your suburban town too. Remember each and every day, get up and go out and be a warrior.